Hello all. This is Julia Preston-Hamilton, and I am presenting the quality characteristic of discernment this semester, and this is for MCAA 530. Okay, and we're just going to jump right into it. Okay, so what does discernment mean? Okay, discernment is the ability to assess the situation around you, gather that information, understand that information, and then take action with the given information that you have acquired. Okay, so it's really distinguishing between what is taught and what is right. Okay, it's the ability to decide between truth and error. Merriam-Webster actually states that it's the equality of being able to grasp and comprehend what is obscure. So what does not come to the forefront immediately and is very evident. How can we distinguish between what is right and what the intent is? Okay. All right, moving right along. Okay, so why is discernment so important? Okay, discernment is important because it is the God-given ability to be able to process what God wants in a certain situation. So discernment can be described as the process of determining God's desire in a situation. The key to living an uncompromising life lies in one's ability to exercise discernment. Okay, for example, failure to discern between, as a doctor, for example, between the right medicine for a patient could be detrimental. Okay, so in ways of being discerned, if you think biblical, you can almost always never really make a mistake or have fault in when choosing. All right. So moving right along, what does the Bible have to say about discernment? Okay. So the Bible is, in quotes, saying that discernment is a gift from God. Okay. The good book has many chapters and verses where they speak about being discerned and being able to have wisdom. Wisdom and discernment really go hand in hand. But these are the three that I chose that stood out to me. So Proverbs 8:12 states that I, wisdom, live together with good judgment. I know where to discover knowledge and discernment. So in this passage, wisdom is once again imagined as a woman who cries out to be heard. This woman, okay, is essentially saying that the non-spiritual world may worship technology and may worship material things, but those who follow God obtain discretion to know God's plan for the future. Okay. Ephesians 5:15, Paul said, look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of time because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, okay, but understanding what the will of the Lord is. Okay, in this passage, the Bible speaks about knowing the will of God, okay? Paul writes this letter to the Ephesians where he's telling them to be imitators of God, okay? Paul is saying that the world is evil, but the practice of discernment and to practice discernment and trust in God's plan. Okay, very last one. 1 Thessalonians 5:21 and 22. But examine everything carefully, hold fast to which is good, and abstain from every form of evil. Okay, in this passage, God teaches responsibility that it's every Christian's responsibility to practice discernment. It's every Christian's almost every Christian is required to practice discernment. Okay. So, moving right along, discernment in Hollywood. Okay, there are movies and quotes and shows and stuff of that nature that show characters being practicing discernment. The first example I have is Hacksaw Ridge. It's a movie about a World War II infantry soldier. He refused to bear arms, okay, but he ended up saving 100 lives and awarded the Medal of Honor. Okay, he runs into a Japanese soldier in the tunnels and started administering care. I have a clip here posted for you guys for you to tag along and watch. But he decided not to bear arms, even though it was his duty to bear arms. It was required of him. But he decided not to. And because he distinguished from what he was taught and what actually was right, he decided to administer care to the Japanese soldiers who we are fighting at this point, right? So I think that shows a very, very a great example of being a practicing discernment. The second one I have is Temptations. It's Confession of a Marriage Counselor. Okay, this marriage counselor, she's up and coming. This guy comes, this billionaire, he comes, sweeps her feet, gives her everything she dreams of, even though she is married and very much Christian. Okay, and as they are going about this time together, the mother of this marriage counselor notices that this guy might not be all good. You know, she understands what exactly, and she sees and she gets the feeling of what exactly is going on, and shows great, once again, another great example of showing discernment. So, how do we practice discernment? Okay? The best way to practice discernment, or to make it easier, I broke it down into a 3-step process. Okay? The first one is being aware, the second being understanding, the third being action. Okay? So awareness is the realization. Okay? It's to see or recognize those spirits moving within us. So for example, young athletes and their friends, young athletes who are very prominent and have promising futures have to learn early to learn how to discern. They have to be able to recognize who is for them and who isn't. All right, so that's the first step. Second step is understanding. Understanding to know the direction, okay, is to know the direction of the different movements in the heart and mind. Recognize the intent, okay? People may do things to you, may say things to you, but it is the intent behind it. And the second step is always recognizing, okay, what are they trying to get to? The third is action. Exactly what it means. Receiving or rejecting a thought or feeling. So if I have a meeting with another coach who's interviewing for, the same job that I'm interviewing, the questions might be weird, or they might be getting to something that I'm not sure what they're getting to. So I took awareness, I understood what the intent was, and I took action. Simple as that. Okay. Moving right along. Discernment in sports. I think discernment in sports is huge. All the way from possibly an athletic director, all the way down to being a first-time athlete. Okay, athletes have to show practice discernment in family, teachers, coaches, teammates, friends, community. They have to distinguish between what is good and what is the greater good. Okay, they have pressure from the outside world to make the right decision, and it's even harder when you're put on a pedestal if you're a great athlete or something like that. So it's even harder to practice discernment in that nature. Discernment, coaching with discernment. As a leader and organizing of an organization or institution, your ability to judge well is simply what discerning is. Your ability to judge well with so many moving parts is so critical to your job. Okay, it helps build relationships. It helps you be a greater leader, and it also God's commandment. Okay, it uncovers root issues. Exactly, enhance problem solving. It helps evaluate options. As leaders, we must practice discernment. From our textbook, John C. Maxwell stated, "It does not matter whether you're talking about lying to your neighbor or defrauding a big corporation. Any action ultimately impacts individual people, for better or for worse." Okay, that's from Ethics 101, what every leader needs to know. Every decision that we make impacts you, the person next to you, and thousands of people down the line. It's up to us to be able to judge well and make those decisions and understand the ripple effect that comes with being a coach. Okay, that is all that I have. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you learned more about discernment. If you didn't know anything about it, I'm hoping this is your first time hearing some things about it. So, thank you.